All right, we are live, folks. Come on in. Come on in. JLR Magnolia investigates Montana, Anaconda, Montana. Another massive manhunt in this country is still taking place. We're talking about the case of the mass shooting that occurred Friday morning at the Owl Bar in Anaconda, Montana, a very rural western part of Montana. Police in the next few minutes are going to be giving a press conference update, giving some information out. Remember, the community is still on edge in Montana. So, this guy needs to be apprehended. So we got a press conference coming up in Montana. Mikey Brown, a.k.a. Michael Paul Brown, Mike Brown, Michael Brown. He still has not been caught. They think he's out there in the woods, in that area of just west of Anaconda, Montana, near the mountain there. There's some trails out there. There are a lot of things are closed out there. So all eyes are still on Montana. We haven't left this story because there's a dangerous armed man still out on the loose. And we're going to get a press conference update. We're going to get a press conference update in the next few minutes. I believe it's starting at 1 p.m. Eastern. And this will be the first press conference in a while with some updates. I know the Attorney General of Montana has been speaking over the weekend. Maybe we'll get an understanding of what exactly they're doing and not doing in this rural area of Montana, far western Montana. So, this terrible mass shooting happened. 4 people died, probably the biggest mass shooting in Montana history. And we're going to get an understanding of what exactly happened here, or maybe they tell us about, in the trees, what they're doing to search for this guy, how they're searching for this guy, what the plan is. And the press conference will be coming up very, very shortly. So we'll listen in, and then we'll keep the conversation going. Remember, there's 4 victims in this case. The bartender, Nancy, she died. Nancy Kelley, she was 64. And then 3 patrons to this bar. All of them are pretty old. They're older. I won't call them all elderly people, but I mean, all the victims here. 64, Nancy Kelley. Daniel Baillie, 59 years old. David Allen Leach, 70 years old. Tony Wayne Palm, 74 years old. So you got 4 people, died from this. You got this madman out on the loose, the former vet, former Montana National Guard. Family members say he suffers from mental illness. Now, I will say that I have been in contact with locals that I've kind of friended up with from that area, and they kind of tell me what's going on. They thought they had this guy cornered the other day, possibly in a cabin. That ended up not being true as far as him being in the cabin, but they definitely were searching cabins and searching like old sheds. It's an old mining town from the past, but they had locals running around there with guns and motorcycles, all in this area looking for this guy. So the locals, I don't think, are going to be helping this guy in any way, shape, or form as sympathetic. Because you've been hearing out there, well, sympathetic locals will try to hide and shield this guy. That's not the tone I'm getting. All the entire community of Anaconda is on edge, what I've been told, and they will defend themselves. Let me just put it that way. They said they're locked, ready, and loaded. Locked, ready, and loaded for this guy here. The fear is he could come back into town. Is it called the Pintlers? The Pintlers. It's like the kind of like trees and area and stuff like that. They believe he's out there somewhere, just west of that area near Mount Hagen. There's some trails out there. They got a lot of the trails out there are closed right now, and we will get some information shortly. So that's what's happening now in Montana. Authorities are about to speak. So make sure you sub up to the channel, like hit the notification button. 1 person down, 2 to go. When I say 1 person down, we're talking about Austin Robert Drummond from Tennessee, captured today. There was 3 massive manhunts in this country going off at the same time. I would say the Austin Drummond case out of Tennessee, this case out of Montana, and then Travis Decker in nearby Washington State. Those are the biggest manhunts that I've seen going on in this country. So 1 down, 2 to go. Will they catch this guy? We should have a poll, and who's going to be caught next, Michael Brown or Travis Decker? Now that Austin Drummond has been caught. But yeah, we're going to get a press conference update here very, very shortly. But this kind of gives you a summary of the terrain in this area. The terrain. Also, they call it the killer out there in Arkansas too. So we're going to see what authorities have to say, share the information in real time of what's being said. This happened Friday morning, so you got all weekend. He very well could be alive. The weather out there is not too cold out there. Each day has been going up into the low to mid 70s each day. Each day, the low 50s, low to mid 50s. So it's definitely survivable weather out there, though the weather changes dramatically up in those hills. Once you get a couple months from now, it goes all downhill into the 30s. I mean, they get a lot of snow up there in the area, but it's not, the weather is survivable. The question is this guy, does he have a shirt? Does he have clothes? We don't know, but we're going to wait to get some key details here of what's happening. Continuous coverage of the manhunts around the country. JLR investigates. NBC Montana has been doing really good with their reporting out there. They actually called it out yesterday by saying, we're not getting much information here. We're not, and we'll play that clip afterward. They were like, we're not getting much information about this manhunt here. They do have boots on the ground in the area. I think some other media outlets are also boots on the ground in that area. They spoke just briefly last night. Very, very briefly last night. Nothing of significance. So hopefully we get some information. Hopefully the community can be at ease, right? Because everyone's on edge here. But this shows you the general area of what we're dealing at. JLR investigates. Press conference coming up very, very shortly for the manhunt for Michael Brown. Michael Paul Brown, 45 years old, former vet, fatally shot 4 people, took off. The public is warned that he is armed and dangerous. He's armed and dangerous. And $10,000 reward out that I've seen for information. The shooting happened at this little small bar called the Owl Bar. Community of 10,000 people. Happened Friday. We covered the mass shooting. We've covered the latest. But the search continues. Local, state, and federal partners are now searching for Brown, who remains at large. Officials have focused the multi-agency search on the area off Stumptown Road and expanded it to Barker Lake and the surrounding areas. At one point, over 250 boots on the ground were in the area over the weekend in search of this suspect, the shooting suspect here. The effort includes canine detection units as well as infrared and heat detection technology used by air drones and personnel conducting searches of camping and hunting sites. The U.S. Marshals involved with the search announced a $10,000 reward. They have a hotline, 1-877-926-8332. So they got a hotline up to try to find this guy. If anyone has any credible information or anything that could help them, a spotting, a sighting, call it. $10,000 reward. They said Sunday that the law enforcement response will shift a little bit in Anaconda as some personnel return to their home bases and the effort turns into a fugitive location operation. They're also saying it's possible that this guy did self-harm on himself somewhere out there in the woods. But they are still at this time, according to the report last night, they're still acting like on the assumption that he is alive, well-armed, and extremely dangerous. Alive, well-armed, and extremely dangerous. You see his photo right here. The look of him coming out of that bar kind of looks like he's lost some weight. This kind of looks like in his younger years. Anaconda, Montana, folks, we take you. And here we go. The press conference It's about to be underway. We'll hear what I'm assuming is the Attorney General and people there. We will listen in and hear what they have to say in a few minutes. Come on in. Come on in. Continuous coverage. We're going to stay with this. I actually thought about possibly going out there and covering the manhunt. Problem is, I think it's very remote, lack of cell phone reception and whatnot. So I see a lot of people in the chat. Welcome aboard. Oh, well, here comes the officials. Here comes the officials. Here comes the officials. Press conference about to start. We'll listen in. About to start. Hopefully the volume's good. All right, so we don't have no volume on this. So stand by. We'll get the
law enforcement agencies to provide an update on the current situation in Anaconda following the shooting last Friday. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment of silence to acknowledge the loss of 4 Montanans: 59-year-old Daniel Edwin Baillie, 64-year-old Nancy Lauretta Kelley, 70-year-old David Allen Leach, and 74-year-old Tony Wayne Palm. Thank you. May God rest their souls and comfort their families at this difficult time. I've spoken with members of the victims' families and shared condolences on behalf of the people of Montana. Please keep them in your prayers. Moments ago, I received a briefing on the status of the ongoing investigation and the search for the suspect. With me here today are Attorney General Austin Knudsen, Montana Division of Criminal Investigation Administrator Lee Johnson, Montana Highway Patrol Major Justin Braun, General Mike Marini from the Montana National Guard, Anaconda Deer Lodge Police Chief Bill Sather, Anaconda Deer Lodge County Attorney Morgan Smith, U.S. Marshal Craig Anderson, and FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge Richard Bauer. Thank you all for being here. According to the Montana Department of Justice, on Friday, August 1st, around 10:30, 45-year-old Michael Brown walked into the Owl Bar and opened fire, killing 4 people before fleeing the scene. At this time, Michael Braun continues to be at large. Since the tragic event, our Montana law enforcement officers have been unrelenting in their pursuit, working around the clock to bring this suspect, Michael Brown, to justice for his heinous acts. I recently received an update from the Montana National Guard on their assistance with the search. Since Friday, a helicopter from the Helena Battalion, as well as 4 soldiers, have flown over 19 hours as of Sunday to assist with the search and to provide transportation of law enforcement personnel into this remote area in the mountains. Working alongside these folks standing beside me, all partners will continue the pursuit of this criminal. Once found, I have no doubt that the Montana Department of Justice will prosecute this killer to the full extent of the law to bring justice to those grieving the loss of a loved one and solace to members of the Anaconda community. Rest assured, our brave men and women of law enforcement aren't giving up. And I ask you that you not give up on them either. Think of them in your prayers and support them and their families as you can. Yesterday, I spoke with Police Chief Sather. Under Montana law, I'm able to release emergency funds to law enforcement if local agency requests it. This morning, I received that request from Anaconda Deer Lodge. And moments ago, I signed an executive order to support the efforts of local law enforcement. While the state has already been supporting this investigation with staff and aviation assets, this action today will ensure additional financial resources are available as we continue to track down this criminal. In particular, these additional financial resources from the State Emergencies Response Fund will help pay local law enforcement's overtime and to continue the search. At this time, I'd like to invite County Attorney Morgan Smith to share a few words on behalf of the Chief and the Anaconda community. Morgan?
Thanks, Governor. Good afternoon. I'd like to first start out and talk to the families of Daniel, David, Nancy, and Tony. Our thoughts and prayers remain with you. My office will be reaching out to all of the victim families and want you to know that there are services and financial assistance that is available through the Victim Witness Advocate and through the Montana Crime Victim Compensation Fund. Recognizing all that is on your plate right now as you experience this tragedy, if there is assistance that Victim Advocate can provide or that my office can provide, we would love to do so. To the Anaconda community, if I can speak for both Chief Sather and myself, we understand the desire for more information. This manhunt has involved individuals from 38 local, state, and federal agencies, and coordination of hundreds from all of those agencies has been a very difficult task. They are responding to every call, to every tip, and they're tirelessly searching the area where the suspect is believed to be. I understand the pit in your stomach every time you've heard sirens in our community the last 5 days. I experienced the same. Any call that comes in of a potential sighting of Michael Paul Brown or a suspicious person in an unexpected place, or a concern that you can't reach a loved one and you have concern that they have been harmed, every single one of those calls has been responded to. And every time those calls come in, they're treated as though they are going to be the call that results in the apprehension of Michael Paul Brown. The officer response to these calls has been immense. For those of you that have homes or have property in the Stumptown area, we hear your call for questions. We hear your concerns of access to your property and safety of your homes. The agencies that are working with Anaconda law enforcement are working to set up a process for communication with you so you'll have a clear understanding of your access to your home and to your property. When you're seeing lights and sirens pass your house, we're understanding that you want answers. However, we ask that you remain patient and know that the investigation is ongoing. There's information law enforcement cannot release to the public for potential of jeopardizing an ongoing investigation, and there's information that law enforcement cannot release for fear of creating additional safety risk to law enforcement officers or to the community at large. When the dust settles and our community is safe again, we will answer all of the questions that we are able to. In the meantime, we ask that you take information that you see on social media with a grain of salt. We ask that you refrain from sharing information that you do not know to be true. The specific facts that will later be necessary for the prosecution of this case are not necessarily relevant for the apprehension of Michael Paul Brown, nor do they ensure in keeping the public safe. The priority of all of the folks standing here before you is the apprehension of Michael Paul Brown. We ask that you be kind. We ask that you look out for your neighbors. And recognize that while state and federal agencies are here and they're working really hard, your local police force and your local dispatchers are working right alongside these agencies. They're also continuing to respond and patrol our community, respond to 911 calls, and remain involved in active ongoing investigations. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Now, Attorney General Austin Knudsen will share more information on the resources available for reporting a tip to assist in the arrest and capture of this suspect.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. I'm Attorney General Austin Knudsen. I want to first say thank you to the Governor. This release of assets and resources for law enforcement is going to allow us to keep this manhunt going. This is very labor intensive. It's very resource intensive. These tactical teams and the manpower out here, knowing the state of Montana has stepped up and is going to offset some of those costs is a huge continuance for us. So thank you, Mr. Governor. Also want to thank the law enforcement crowd that's here. What you're seeing behind me is tremendous. This is nothing short of remarkable for a law enforcement response in the state of Montana. This is what we do. Something bad happens and neighbors respond. And we've got local agencies, we've got county sheriffs, local municipalities, but I also want to thank our federal partners. We've got the FBI here, we've got the U.S. Marshal Service. This allows us to keep more resources focused at catching this individual. With that, I want to announce that the U.S. Marshals Service has increased our reward for any information that will lead to the capture of Michael Paul Brown. The U.S. Marshals Service has now put up $10,000 for any tip that leads to his apprehension. The tip line, and this is important, 1-877 wanted 2, the number 2, wanted 2, and I'll give you the digits. 1-877-926-8332. Again, it's a $10,000 reward currently for any information that's going to lead to the apprehension of Michael Paul Brown. We want to get this guy rounded up. This is our top focus in the entire state of Montana, is making sure this community is safe and getting this fugitive brought in one way or the other. So again, want to thank all our partners, thank my agencies, the state agencies, the county agencies, the city agencies, and our federal partners for being here. Thank you, Mr. Governor.
Yeah. Thank you, Attorney General. Once again, on behalf of the people of Montana, thank you to all the law enforcement officers and agencies dedicated to resolving this investigation and search, and to the families of those who lost loved ones. May God bless you and keep you. At this time, I'll open it up for questions. I ask that you please raise your hand and state your name and outlet. Yes.
John Riley, Montana Television Network. I've spoken with numerous residents over the last few days. The number one question from all of them: when was the last time Michael Brown was seen physically? Was it, within the last couple of days, or was it since the incident?
Yep.
Yeah. And I might ask DCI or one of our locals to come up and address this. Without stating too much, I mean, I think the last concrete time we can say for sure he was seen was Friday. Now, there is certainly evidence in our search area that he's present, and that we're hunting in the right haystack. But at this time, to answer your question as specifically as I can, the last confirmed, absolutely sure sighting of Michael Paul Brown would have been Friday.
All right. That's some clarity.
Montana Public Radio. I understand we've been talking about the Stumptown Road area. Can you be any more specific about where search efforts are concentrated right now? Is there, a parameter of search area where?
Okay, I'm deferring all specific investigation stuff to the AG or DCI, so they want to.
So Lee Johnson from DCI will answer.
Hey, good morning. So the question is essentially, how large is the perimeter? How focused is it? We've gone everywhere from focused perimeter based on evidence that we're seeing in the area, a much larger area that is protective of the residents up there, and obviously to what is reasonable for where a human being could possibly be located or could move to. And so when we look at all of those options with resources available, the type of terrain, it's very challenging. So we have expanded our perimeters to look in different areas. I can't provide that detail right now. That's operational. So I appreciate the question.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
So has there been any evidence that he's broken into cabins or homes for food? Any such evidence?
This will be interesting.
Is there any evidence or indication that our suspect has broken in any cabins or homes in the area? The quickest answer is no. We don't have any evidence that that's happened. Residents are obviously being cooperative. There's been sweeps. There's a number of cabins up there. They've all been swept and checked. Other assets up there. But the quick answer to your question is no.
Yes.
All right.
What is the federal government's involvement in this case look like going forward in terms of the search for Michael Brown?
There's an owl.
Come on up. We can share the podium.
Good, the owl?
Is Richard Bear, FBI, along with our U.S. Marshals counterparts. We've been here since the onset of the investigation, and so we've provided significant resources tactically, investigatively with our intelligence program. So we're here to see it through with our partners and stand side by side with them and do everything we can in the federal government to help keep this community safe.
Is there still air support for the search?
That's correct.
And I just want to add, again, as a shout out to all of the members, federal, state, local. The cooperation between law enforcement agencies has really been spectacular. There's no friction, and they've been relentless in their pursuit of this suspect. Yes.
I think it's a crow.
Montana. Obviously there were the 4 fatalities. Were any injuries reported during the initial incident or the pursuit thereafter?
Nothing specifically. I mean, look, it's rough terrain up there. We got a lot of personnel up there working. They're carrying a lot of gear, animals, equipment, packs. We got to be careful up there. So I think it's foreseeable that somebody might get themselves hurt. We're doing everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen. But at this time, that's probably about as far as I'm going to go with that one.
And my second question to local officials: how was the community notified of this active shooter situation?
Sure.
Sure. So, to be honest, it was real time as it was occurring. There was basically communication to a number of locations, courthouse, hospital, things of that nature, indicating a belief that a lockdown was potentially necessary. And then, honestly, from there, what happened was a large law enforcement response. That communication was then largely handled through local media, as well as online presence, and then updates have been provided since that time when able through both the use of social media as well as notice to the media.
Yeah, John.
John, MTN News. I was going to ask when you mentioned real-time response, do we know, was this a standoff situation? And can you explain how maybe did he leave the bar, the suspect, prior to police arriving? What do we know as far as how he was able to kind of slip through or was as far as the...
Sure. Without sharing, because this is ongoing, there's a lot of information that we're not going to be in a position to disclose. Once Mr. Brown was leaving, I can tell you that the law enforcement response to realization that he was leaving was nearly immediate. And so there was no gap in time where he was located and then chased. A pursuit ensued. But outside of that, I wouldn't be able to provide any more specifics.
Yes.
John Riley, again. Are you operating under the belief that he is still armed?
Yeah.
We have to, John. We absolutely have to assume that he's armed and extremely dangerous. This is clearly an unstable individual. He's had access to firearms, numerous firearms in his home, and he used a firearm to commit a really heinous series of crimes. We don't have specific information, but look, he was able to escape and get up in the mountains. We are absolutely operating under the assumption that he is armed and extremely dangerous.
Is it just a follow-up question? The weapon that is believed to have been used in the murders, has that been recovered or is that still missing?
I'm not going to comment on that because that is critical to an investigation and we're not going to release that.
Why?
John Avey, MTN News. Did the suspect, I know you guys probably search his residence and stuff did he leave any kind of note or send any kind of message on social media or anywhere prior to the attack?
Also, that would be part of an investigative file where we'll
Sounds like yes.
Comment on that.
Sounds like yes.
I'm Duncan Adams with Montana Stand. Attorney General told us Sunday that there would be a transition with law enforcement. And there's been a huge transition. It seems like a very small presence now. Why so small at this point?
Look, I think it's important to know that we're still taking this extremely seriously. This is still the #1 law enforcement effort in the state of Montana. But look, the fact is you have a lot of out of jurisdiction law enforcement professionals who are here. They've got home counties, they've got hometowns that they have to go in and they have to enforce the law there too. We also run up against just resources and logistics. There's a lot of manpower and a lot of overtime being put in up here. That money has to come from somewhere. And it's not reasonable for us to expect, Petroleum County to come over here and put in the time that they have and not have that time compensated. So those are the kind of things that we've been working through the weekend. I cannot thank the governor enough for the executive order that he signed today, freeing up emergency funds. That is absolutely huge and a game changer for us because that allows us to keep this search going at a higher level. So I'm hesitant to say it's going to be a big transition. we're keeping our all the assets, all the resources that have been here are going to keep being up there. We've got teams cycling in and out. They've got home territories they have to go home and take care of as well.
Okay, we'll take two more. Yes.
Jake Ellison for the New York Times. I noticed that Stumptown Road is open now. So can you just talk a little bit about why that road is open and what you expect people who use that road or who live there and have homes off of that road? How do you expect them to?
Yeah, the county attorney Smith addressed that a little bit. There's a process being set up to allow residents to get back in. They have animals up there. They have personal belongings. They need to get back to their homes as long as their safety is not being compromised. And that process is underway now to get that put in place. I don't know if you want to add anything.
That's basically what we know at this time.
Okay. Yes.
I understand that this is probably a number that changes, but I'm curious, like today, how many people are searching in this area? You know, how many personnel are searching? How much of their dogs? How many dogs are up there right now?
I'm going to defer this probably to Lee with DCI. Look, I'm reluctant to put out there publicly how many canines we have up on the hill searching. We don't know if people are communicating with Mr. Brown. We have no reason to think so. But at this time, I'm reluctant to tell you exactly how many assets we have up there. We can probably give you a rough overall number of law enforcement presence at the time. But aside from that, that's as far as we're going to go. Lee, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to follow up on that. So we scale our teams appropriately for what the mission is. And we have anywhere from 4-person teams to as many as 12. And that's just one team. So several teams, depending on exactly what we're trying to accomplish. But I can tell you that we are inserting substantial resources that are scaled appropriately. I don't want to talk about strict numbers from which agencies, but I can tell you that we're maximizing the resources that are available.
And I would just add that was the whole point of this executive order, is to make sure the resources are available there so we can continue to pay overtime to make sure the law enforcement stays on the job until this individual is apprehended. We'll take one last question. Yes.
Family members of Michael Brown have reached out to us and said that he was denied help from the VA. Is this something that you people are able to confirm or deny?
Yeah, under federal law, we can't comment on an individual patient. And I don't know if there's additional information you can add about local things, but we're not at liberty to release that. So
I mean, I think that's a question for the VA. We just don't have that information. We don't have access to it. Frankly, it's not cogent to our investigation at this point.
Okay. Thank you all. We'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the governor there, AG, governor, officials. What do you think? Dead or alive? No sighting of him, confirmed sighting of him since Friday. No eyes on him over the weekend. No evidence of him breaking into anything or anything like that. I'm starting to think the guy is dead, but people are also saying alive. Where do you think he's at? Community still wants answers, as you heard. The fear is he could come back into town. That's the talk of the town. The fear is he could come back to Anaconda. Very remote out there. We'll put the other, we'll share something right here. There's a couple of news reports coming out in the last 24 hours center around here. NBC Montana has a report, and locals are strapping up, lock and loaded.
For Michael Brown, the suspect involved in a mass shooting that occurred in Anaconda on Friday morning, continues. During a press conference this morning, Attorney General Austin Knudsen said search efforts are still underway around Anaconda for Brown. He said hundreds of individuals are assisting in search efforts and announced there is a reward for anyone with information that leads to the arrest or capture of Brown.
This is a dangerous individual who has committed an absolutely heinous crime against this community and these victims. I'll go ahead and announce right now that at this time we have a $7,500 reward, and that's just the initial reward. I'll also state that. But we have a $7,500 reward for any information that would lead us to Michael Paul Brown.
Knutson also said Brown used a rifle during the incident that belonged to him, and officials believe he is still armed.
We can confirm that it was a rifle. At this point, I'm not going to give out a bunch of more information about that. We do know the individual had access to firearms. We believe he was probably still armed and dangerous.
During the press conference, the names of the victims involved in the incident were released. All 4 of them are from Anaconda. They are identified as 59-year-old Daniel Edwin Baillie, 64-year-old Nancy Lauretta Kelley, 70-year-old David Allen Leach, and 74-year-old Tony Wayne Palm. Officials are asking residents to remain vigilant and keep an eye out for Brown, who is described as 5'10", 170 pounds with blue eyes and brown hair. Authorities said Brown was last seen driving a stolen 2007 white Ford F-150 pickup with Montana plates. The stolen truck was believed to have clothing and camping gear inside. However, DCI Administrator Lee Johnson said law enforcement located the truck on Friday and Brown was not found in or around it. As search efforts continue, the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest announced closures here on land southeast of Georgetown Lake and south of Highway 1 in the East Fork of Twin Lakes Creek. Closures will also be in effect east past Barker Lakes to Garrity Wildlife Management. The Mount Hagen area is also closed. These closures are anticipated to last through August 17th. Anyone with information about the incident or Brown's whereabouts are asked to reach out to the hotline at the number on your screen or dial 911.
All right, wanted to put that information. That was the
as the search continues for Brown, residents of the community of Anaconda are predictably concerned about their safety. MTN's John Amy has more on how some people are going about protecting themselves.
With the manhunt continuing for the person suspected of fatally shooting 4 people in a local bar, naturally, people in the small town of Anaconda are concerned for their safety. In fact, one local pawn shop said they had a few people come in immediately after the shooting, looking for firearms like this that they could easily carry for personal protection.
It's a nice little something you can just throw in your waistband or tuck in your pocket that you're not going to be too worried about.
The owner of Anaconda Pawn said about 3 or 4 people purchased handguns from his store the same day a man entered the Owl Bar and shot and killed 4 people. He believes the shooting motivated the purchases.
The vibe off the people that came in was, all right, well, I got the one I keep in the truck, but what if I'm somewhere and something like this happens again? I'd rather have one on me.
Investigators are searching for Michael Brown, whom they suspect killed a bartender and 3 patrons in the bar the morning of August 1st and has been hiding out in a wooded area west of town. Some residents believe it's better to carry a gun and not need it than to not have a gun and need it.
Life is short and you only live once, and you never know when someone like that will just pop up out of nowhere, even in places like this where it never happens.
Joe Kovacic stopped in the pawn shop recently, but not to purchase a gun. He just wanted to pawn his chainsaw.
I don't have a gun. I'm 77. If it's my time to go, I'm ready to go.
All agree the recent shooting is a tragedy for this small community.
We had a group of customers that came in that day, and it was too bad he didn't walk in somewhere like this where we have the means to defend ourselves. And that's kind of where we're at, is we just want to see justice.
In Anaconda, John Amy, MTN News.
Crazy stuff, huh? Loading up. People going to the local pawn shop there to get armed. We take you to basically what the terrain looks like. All right, so you know, one thing, they're going off the assumption that he is still alive out there. Lack of information, though, some information. I guess that was some good information that was out there. Michael Paul Brown, 45 years old, former vet, former Montana National Guardsman, believed to be out there in the woods Dead or alive? What was in that stolen truck? Camping gear? Is he out there for the long haul? What do you need to survive out there? Well, you're going to need food and water. No reports of any break-ins. So how's he surviving here? We're now what? Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 days. That's it. That's 4 days. 4 days. I have one more clip I want to play for you. I'm going to get this up in the pipeline here. Witness recounts a little bit about the scene. In my opinion, he's not alive, but what do you do at this point? You scale it down, you escalate it, because the fear is if he's not found and he's dead, but he's not found, how are the locals going to, how do you think the locals are going to have to feel? Not knowing if this guy's going to come back or not creep around and return to the community and prey on more people and victimize somebody else. I got one more clip I want to play about this situation. Witness details.
It's been a
chaos.
tense couple of days for the residents in this quiet neighborhood along Evergreen Street that leads up to Stumptown Road here behind me, where authorities have set up an incident command in the ongoing manhunt for the suspect in the mass shooting that took place on August 1st in southwest Montana.
We've been keeping our doors locked and our outside lights on just as a precaution, even during the daytime.
79-year-old John Sestrich says he just finished painting the siding on his garage around 10:30 in the morning when he heard an engine revving outside his home.
I was cleaning up my brush, then I heard this vehicle race up the street.
The truck was heading south on Evergreen Street that leads to a dead end where motorists have to either turn back into town or head west along Stumptown Road.
When it turned up our street on Evergreen, then I heard them really take off and roar. And then pretty soon I heard sirens. The person lose track of time, but it seemed like only somewhere between 10 and 15 seconds. And then 3 police cars raced up the street.
There are several miles of residential neighborhood along the north side of Stumptown Road. To the south lies a vast expanse of public land called the Anaconda Pintler Wilderness, where authorities are in the 4th day of searching for 45-year-old Michael Brown, the man they believe is responsible for murdering 3 patrons and a bartender of the Owl Bar.
When I found out what was going on, that it's really odd that the police didn't catch him in that shortest span. Stumptown Road is all dirt, and you'd see the dirt from the Mr. Brown racing up the road where he turned off or something. And so it was really odd that they didn't catch him right away.
On Sunday morning, authorities with local, state, and federal agencies utilized air and ground teams to search the area.
We've got tremendous cooperation from Homeland Security, from our federal partners, the FBI, the U.S. Marshal Service. We want to find this guy. This is a dangerous individual who has committed an absolutely heinous crime against this community and these victims.
Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen says a reward of $7,500 is offered for information leading to the suspect, who is considered to be armed and dangerous. But John says that despite his proximity to the search location, he is grateful for the law enforcement presence.
Well, I really feel safe here because the command center is just 2 blocks up. So I know the person isn't going to be right here in my area.
The public is asked to call 911 immediately if they encounter Michael Brown. A hotline has been set up for tips at 1-877-WANTED-2. In Anaconda, Megan Thompson, MTN News.
All right, so kind of give you some perspective about the situation. Ruben Urban, saw your comment a little earlier. The truth will come out. This kind of tells you gives you a description of the terrain that authorities are dealing with this madman that could be alive out there. I'm not saying he's dead, but I think he's dead. I think he's dead. But see, look at the comment. Some people think he's alive. Some people say he's still alive. It's 4 days. 4 days. I mean, people are saying he's alive and well. The reason why I don't think he's alive is because of just look at the fly on the screen. Huh, look at the fly on the screen there. That was crazy. Yeah, mental health issues. Seems like he was thought a conspiracy was against him. They're saying that he was talking about Illuminati and bugs in his head, things like that, chips in his brain, things like that. You know, I don't know, but until, you know, you get confirmation, everyone's just like, what's happening here? Is this guy alive or dead? Is this guy alive or dead? And, you know, until you actually get confirmation, everyone's going to be on edge. They got the community out there gunning up. Locals, this never happened in this area on this extreme. So that is pretty much the latest on this particular mass shooting, this manhunt underway. We will continue to monitor. If you see something, contact authorities. Don't go near this guy. This guy is clearly unstable, and who knows what, you know, he could be totally hungry out there, irrational, thinking everyone's plotting him, and just start firing away at anyone that's trying to apprehend him. These are different looks. Clearly he can grow facial hair. So, you know, it's been 4 days, man out there not shaving. His beard could be growing out more white. You know, he could have different looks. Obviously here he has multiple different looks here. So Michael Paul Brown, he has 45. He is still out there, but that is the latest on this case, and we will stay with it. Any other type of updates or anything else that you anything else they put out there or any type of new info, you'll hear it here on JLR Investigates. Thanks for stopping by. Praying for the city of Anaconda, the community. If you want to share, if you're a local, again, I've been communicating with some locals, but if you're a local watching this and you want to set the record straight or give us some information that can help relay out there or say stuff that the media is not, you know, give us info that the media is not sharing or whatever, tips at JLR Investigates, You could be anonymous. We protect anonymity. You could speak on the record, off the record, whatever. If you want to provide us some insight about what's really going on in Anaconda, we would love to hear from you. But praying for all the residents. Stay safe up there in Montana. Sorry this happened to your small community. Hopefully this guy gets found and taken off the streets, and then everyone can be at ease. But in the meantime, 4 families affected here. Horrible, horrible. So we are praying for the families of the 4 victims in the entire community and law enforcement community and everyone involved, putting their life at risk trying to find this madman. All right, we'll talk soon. Thanks for watching, everyone. JLR Investigates. Be safe out there.